Whoa! Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the Champions League round of 16 fixtures are approaching very soon. Now, we already knew about these fixtures months ago, as the draw happened then, and I did a prediction video at that time as well. But obviously, we gotta go over everything again. I mean, not only has a whole World Cup happened, we also had an entire transfer window in the month of January, so lots of the squads have been updated. Form has changed for many of these clubs as well since the World Cup is finished. We gotta go over all of that. So don't forget to drop an early like. Let's try to hit 1,500 likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And just like the World Cup predictions, we are going back to the Pookie website to go over these fixtures. Make sure you send over your predictions onto Pookie as well. The game is currently in its free-to-play stage with the play and earn mode launching very soon. For each scoreline you predict correct, you will receive Madrid currency along with Pookie balls, which will be massive perks to your predictions later down the road. Pookie balls are not only the gateway to the game, but they also add a fun gamification element to the prediction, since they come in different rarities and traits, which will affect the points after each prediction. Once you sign up, you can choose 2 free Pookie balls, so choose wisely. Players should get their free Pookie ball to level 10 at least. It will get them priority access for the Genesis Pookie Ball sale. We're going over the Champions League today, but they've also got the Europa League, along with the top 5 leagues in Europe. Every league has its own leaderboards and therefore its own rewards. The top 10 will receive a prize pool worth 1,000 euros of Matic tokens spread over each weekly league. As you saw during the World Cup, I used this website throughout my prediction videos, and it definitely is my favorite predictor game out there. And like I said, it's free to play, so make sure you click the link in the description below to prove that you're a better predictor than me. Alright, obviously all these matchups are massive, but this one is arguably going to be one of the most anticipated. PSG versus Bayern Munich, 2 massive giants in European football going head to head. However, both of these squads are going through some injury complications right now. Many players are reported to be missing for the first leg, which will be happening on Valentine's Day in Paris. PSG will most likely be missing Mbappe. Ramos and Neymar were rumored to be out as well, but they both recently played in the cup match against Marseille. Now, Messi is the latest rumored to be missing after he picked up a hamstring injury in that same match. So there's a lot of uncertainty for this squad. For Bayern Munich's case, most of us already know about this, but Neuer will be missing both legs after his skiing incident. Due to this, over the January transfer window, Bayern decided to pick up Jan Sommer from Borussia Mönchengladbach. We already know of his spectacular ability on the international stage. Even for club, I mean, he has been a lethal part to frustrating Bayern many times in the Bundesliga. Lucas Hernandez and Massawi will also be missing both legs. Mane is also still recovering from the injury right before the World Cup, so he will most likely at least miss the first leg. Regardless, these are both stacked squads that can each hold their own, even with these injury blows. Since the Bundesliga's return on January 20th after the World Cup, Bayern at first seemed to be struggling in front of goal. They picked up 3 1-1 draws in a row against Leipzig, Köln, and Frankfurt. But in their next 2 fixtures, one of them being in a cup match, they scored 4 goals in each of the matches. PSG's form since the World Cup has finished has been a bit all over the place, but they also have been playing more matches than Bayern Munich. Ligue 1 started earlier than the Bundesliga since the World Cup finished, where at the beginning they lost to Lens 3-1, but to be fair, they weren't playing their strongest lineup, as Messi was still partying in Argentina at that time. They then won 2 matches, but then ended up losing to Rennes in the middle of January. They scored loads of goals after that in their next 2 matches, but one of them was a friendly, and the other was a 6th division French club. Also, I recorded the rest of this video during the Marseille versus PSG match, where Marseille did get a 2-1 victory. As much as people love to clown PSG for that loss, I feel like we're taking a bit too much away from Marseille. They're a really solid team this year. They're going to be facing Monaco as well this weekend before they face Bayern Munich. I have no idea what's going to happen there. It won't be easy, but regardless, this is a really 50-50 matchup to call. Lots of changes in the squads. Injuries can definitely hold an impact. A lot of people I'm seeing are banking against PSG due to the lack of, for example, Neymar and Mbappe missing in that first leg, but it's still not an easy one to call. And also, totally forgot to mention this earlier, I'm so sorry, but during that January transfer window, along with Sommer, Bayern picked up another massive signing, Joao Cancelo, who was one of Manchester City's best players last season. See this one going back and forth. I wouldn't rule out PSG just yet. Now over here on the Pookie website for the scorelines, they only have the first leg posted, so I'm going to go ahead and submit my match day 1 prediction. Right now for the first leg, I'm saying Bayern Munich pull through away in Paris. I'm going to say they grab a narrow 1-0 win. I think the firepower will be lacking on both sides, but Bayern will just pull through. So I'm going to set my prediction there. But for the second leg, I'm going for a bit of a surprise. Most people like to predict that the home team pulls through on their own home ground, but I'm going to say Bayern Munich wins in Paris and PSG wins in Munich. At the Allianz Arena, they're able to score 3 against Bayern Munich. They get 1 as well, but the second leg finishes 3-1, which means on aggregate, it would be 3-2, and PSG pulled through to the quarterfinals. I know that's not the popular prediction. I know most people are going for Bayern. It's easy to rule out PSG right now since their form hasn't been consistent, but I think they can improve by the time the second leg rolls around. Now let's move on to AC Milan versus Tottenham. This one's a bit of an interesting one. I feel like a lot of people when this draw first happened were banking on AC Milan, but now it seems more safe to bank on Tottenham, as Milan's form since the World Cup has finished has been a bit woeful. Their defense have simply been all over the place. In the Supercoppa Italiana final played in Saudi Arabia, they lost 3-0 to Inter Milan. Then they lost 4-0 to Lazio in the Serie A. After that, they were able to score 2 against Sassuolo, but they did concede 5 against them as well at the San Siro. Part of their backline issues could obviously be due to their main goalkeeper missing, as Magnan won't be returning until March. It will also be due to the fact that Tomori got an early injury in that Lazio match where they got destroyed. But along with the defense, although we did see Origi score a screamer against Sassuolo and Giroud score himself, many of the attackers haven't been pulling through altogether. Tottenham, on the other hand, once the World Cup ended, were also a bit all over the place, but in recent times, they have picked up their form. Many people are starting to have more faith in the side after just beating Manchester City in the Premier League, while they also picked up some decent signings this January transfer window, such as Pedro Porro from Sporting and Danjuma from Villarreal. Nothing new that Tottenham's form flops back and forth pretty much every season. But while their attack at this current moment in time looks to be a bit more clinical than AC Milan's at the moment, I do think that they can break through that broken back line that AC Milan possess at this current moment of time. With AC Milan's current struggles, who knows if they can improve from their situation the second leg, but for the first, even if they're playing at home at the San Siro, I'm going to say Tottenham are able to grab a 1-0 win against them. Then when the match is played at London in the second leg, I'm going to say Tottenham are able to still win, but AC Milan get a goal. I'm going to say it finishes 2-1. Aggregate score being 3-1, and Tottenham pull through to the quarterfinals. I wouldn't mind to be proven wrong on this. It would be lovely to see AC Milan regain their stature and go back to their glory days, but right now they just seem to be in a bit too much of a mess. Who knows, things can change. Now let's take a look at Club Brugge versus Benfica. Club Brugge were off to a flying start in this Champions League campaign. They had first for quite some time in their group. And they also shocked the world against another Portuguese side, Porto, in the group stage, beating them 4-0 away. Although Porto ended up grabbing the perfect revenge against them, beating them 4-0 in Belgium, it still shows us that we shouldn't underestimate Club Brugge, as they really could just come out of nowhere, and they already had a really solid campaign so far in this Champions League. Getting some pretty serious numbers this season, I wasn't necessarily surprised that they'd pull through to the next round. I was just surprised at the fashion they did it in. However, they did end up sacking their manager, who they did have during the group stage. Although Hofkins did wonderfully in the Champions League, he was struggling domestically. Therefore, they decided to appoint Scott Parker instead. And I don't know if it was the right decision, as since his appointment, they haven't really seemed to be much better. At the time of this recording, they grabbed an insane amount of draws under Scott Parker and just 1 win. Benfica, on the other hand, grabbed first in their Champions League group on the final match day over the likes of PSG and Juventus. It's really incredible what they have done. They're very well known for making high profits off of their transfers. We've already seen the likes of Darwin Núñez go to Liverpool. We just seen Enzo Fernandez this transfer window going to Chelsea. That might be a loss for them in the midfield. But even when they do get rid of these massive players, they still always seem to find some talent that pulls through to replace them. So I'm really not too worried about them losing one of their biggest names, as, to be honest, I kind of doubted this side when they lost Darwin Núñez. But now we're seeing Ramos pull through this season for Benfica. We saw him also have a great World Cup against Switzerland. Rafa Silva in the attack has been fantastic as well. Now they also just picked up more options, such as Norwegian wonderkid Andreas Schjelderup, who crushed it in the Danish league. Benfica got such a bargain on him in this transfer window. Club Brugge can pull a miracle here, but I just don't see it against this very informed Benfica side. They only had 1 loss domestically this season against Brugge, so they're cleaning up majority of their games. Who knows, we could see Club Brugge have them struggle at one point, but it's just way too hard to bank against Benfica right now, especially with Club Brugge's interesting management choice, and now it seems to cost them a bit. Who knows, those talented players can still be fired up and surprise a lot of us, but I'm pretty sure majority of people are going with Benfica, and I'm going to have to do the same. I'm going to say Benfica clean up nicely both legs. Sorry, Club Brugge, prove me wrong. In the first leg, in Belgium, I'm saying Benfica grab a 3-1 win, and in the second leg, I'm saying they beat Club Brugge 4-0. That leaves an aggregate of 7-1 going Benfica's way. They make it to the quarterfinals. Best of luck, Club Brugge, and Benfica, if I'm right, best of luck to you as well in the future. Now for Dortmund versus Chelsea, and very interesting matchup here. As we all know, Chelsea have splashed the most cash this transfer window. They spent a record total of over 600 million this year. I already mentioned Enzo Fernandez, who has proven himself very much at Benfica, but also was the best young player at the World Cup. Mudryk, also a very expensive signing from Chelsea, still very much proven himself in the Champions League, scored some outrageous goals. Joao Felix, they picked him up for a hefty loan fee, looked to be promising before he picked up that red card against Fulham on his debut. Of course, so many other players to talk about that Chelsea have recently picked up, but you get the point. They're stacked. And with all those players that have already been solidified in the squad, it's going to be interesting to see who they end up lining up against Dortmund. But still, it's a bit early days to judge Chelsea as they're still kind of finding the glue to their team with all these new signings. They have so many talented players that can end up doing wonderful things for this club. But will Potter be able to sort out the tactics and the best playing style for each of these players before the Champions League clash? I don't know if there's enough time. And Dortmund are a very solid side who have been in great form this season. At the time of this recording, they are undefeated since the World Cup has finished. And in some of their matches, they've scored a ridiculous amount of goals. Their defense have been shown to be leaky at times throughout this season, but very much for the most part, they have been holding their ground. Meanwhile, since the beginning of the new year for Chelsea, their only win was a 1-0 victory against Crystal Palace. They look a bit disorganized and not threatening enough in front of goal, with their last two matches finishing 0-0 against Liverpool and Fulham. Dortmund are currently third in the Bundesliga, 3 points behind Bayern Munich, who are in first, while Chelsea at the time of this recording are at 9th in the Premier League. I've been seeing a lot of Chelsea fans remain confident in their side that they can pull through in the Champions League despite their domestic struggles. Of course, they got first in their group, pulling through after that upset against Dinamo Zagreb at the beginning, but I do think Dortmund's going to be a tough task. Anything's possible here, of course, but I do feel safer banking on Dortmund to pull through in this. They've just been in much better form, plain and simple. So for that first leg matchup in Germany, I'm going to say Dortmund are able to get a 2-0 win. Then at the Stamford Bridge, I'm going to say it finishes in a 1-1 draw, where Dortmund advance on aggregate 3-1 to the quarterfinals. Sorry, Chelsea, genuinely some tremendous signings, but I do think it's going to take some time to build up, and it's not going to be an easy task against Borussia Dortmund. Now let's take a look at Liverpool versus Real Madrid. Pretty unpredictable one, actually, as both these teams are not looking at their best right now, but in particular Liverpool. They're currently at 10th in the Premier League. This probably is Klopp's most dreadful season. Actually, it's definitely his most dreadful season with the Reds. Apart from their FA Cup replay against Wolves, beating them 1-0 in that match, they haven't won anything in 2023. Because before then, they got demolished by Brighton 3-0, and after they beat Wolves, they lost to them in the Premier League 3-0. The club's just been absolute mess. Midfield not pulling through, and now there's the defense. In the back line, Van Dijk is gone, and in the attack, no Luis Diaz or Jota. Real Madrid also did not have some results going their way, but it's nowhere near as bad as Liverpool's track record in 2023. They had a few slips, like losing to Villarreal in La Liga, 3-1 against Barcelona in the Supercopa de España final, 1-0 against Mallorca recently in La Liga, but without much surprise, they have secured their final spot in the Club World Cup. They'll be playing Al Hilal in the final, and I'm recording this before that matchup happens, so I have no idea what goes on there. But Real Madrid, for the most part, still look to be on track compared to Liverpool. And as we all know, regardless of what happens to them in other fixtures in other leagues, domestically or whatever, Real Madrid always seem to pull through in the Champions League regardless. That UCL is just in their blood and veins. I mean, we saw it last year. Every time it looked like they were about to be down and out, they pulled off a ridiculous comeback. Genuinely one of the most exciting UCL runs I have ever seen. And as much as I want to be wrong on this, I do think Liverpool will suffer once again. It just has not been their year. I am going to go for a bit of a shock, though. I do think Real Madrid will pull through at the end, but at the beginning, everyone's going to count Liverpool out, and somehow at Anfield, they will be able to pull for a 2-2 draw. I say somehow. Liverpool are a great side, but like I said, things have not been going their way this season. They will be able to play for their all, though, in Madrid. But in that match, although we could see the likes of Jota and Diaz return, I'm going to say Madrid pulled through for a 2-0 win at the Santiago Bernabeu. It will be too late for Liverpool. They'll be knocked down in the round of 16s. Madrid go through to the quarterfinals. I mean, we've already seen this matchup happen last year in the final and previously before then as well. Usually, Madrid know how to lock down Liverpool. It's the unfortunate truth. I think it's going to happen once again. Now let's move on to Frankfurt versus Napoli. A very interesting matchup because Napoli have been in ridiculously fantastic form. They are by far the favorites right now to win the Scudetto. They have made some incredible signings this year. Many people have seemed to forgot about Insigne already, with Kvicha absolutely balling out. Him and Osimhen produce a beautiful partnership up top, with them getting some fantastic results in the group stage of the Champions League, to them only having one loss so far in the Serie A. They by far look like the favorites in this match. However, we should by no means rule out Frankfurt here. Frankfurt sit at 5th right now in the Bundesliga, but they are only 5 points behind first place Bayern Munich. They have been in great form themselves, getting some fantastic scorelines going their way, along with holding off the likes of Bayern Munich. As I mentioned earlier, they got a draw against them 1-1 not too long ago. Yes, Osimhen and Kvicha have been getting insane numbers, but so have Frankfurt striker Kolo Muani. Yes, that French striker that did miss that golden opportunity to win them the World Cup, but Emi Martinez made that terrific save against him. He has been getting glorious numbers in the Bundesliga, 9 goals and 12 assists so far this season. We all know since last season, Kamada has not lost his form either, and Mario Götze has kind of seemed to regain his identity ever since he has joined Frankfurt. So many other players to talk about, of course. This is a very underrated squad overall. We also got to keep in mind, although they did get rid of some of their players from last season, these are the Europa League champions, so we shouldn't rule them out whatsoever. They have that fighting spirit. In that campaign, they went on to beat Barcelona, who looked to be juggernauts in that tournament. So although Napoli have had a phenomenal season so far, without a doubt, they are by no means invincible in this fixture, as we've also seen them in January lose on penalties to Cremonese in the Coppa Italia. So I really wouldn't be surprised if Frankfurt pulled the quote-unquote upset at all. I'm going to say it starts off very thrilling in the first leg. Since the first match is in Germany, Frankfurt will be able to grab a 2-1 win at home. This will leave the world shocked, but then the second leg, when Napoli are home, they will grab the win 3-1, and it will finish 4-3 on aggregate. A thriller of a fixture. I think this one will be really exciting. You got two phenomenal fan bases here that really will give out all the energy, no question about it. So I do think those home fixtures will have very much of an impact for these two teams. But I'm going to say Napoli just edged Frankfurt. They really have been spectacular this season. I'm saying they're my favorites, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Napoli somehow bottle this. Shout out to Frankfurt. Now let's move on to RB Leipzig versus Manchester City. Now obviously Manchester City is going through loads of speculation right now after they have been caught basically going through all that financial trouble throughout ever since they had that takeover with their signings. Their punishment is pending. The morale might not be 100% by the time his fixture rolls around. Still, without a doubt though, it seems like Pep is highly motivated to make the most impact in the Champions League, as it's really been his only failure with the club. He's never been able to win the trophy at the end. He's made it far, he's made it to the final, but many times he has bottled it. In fact, he has bottled it to teams that look to be the underdog in this fixture. And without a doubt, although RB Leipzig don't look like the favorites here, they very much have a squad that could take down Manchester City. Joško Gvardiol, my favorite player on the squad, obviously. The Croatian youngster had a phenomenal World Cup. However, Leipzig are unfortunately going through some injuries as well, with some of their more famous players as well. The likes of Dani Olmo has an unknown return date, and Christopher Nkunku, who is had some glorious numbers, is definitely going to be missing the first leg. Their main goalkeeper Gulacsi as well has an unknown return date. Still, with these injuries, they have the threat and creativity to very much upset City. For Man City's case, it's a bit unknown. Obviously, Cancelo leaving was also a bit of an interesting case, but still, they have so much quality. Feels a bit wrong to bank against Manchester City this early on in the Champions League. I think maybe they can still bottle things, but not this early on. I'm going to go for a bit of an outrageous prediction on this one. First leg, going Leipzig's way. Outrageous scoreline of 3-2. That will scare City a bit, but then at the Etihad, I think they'll be able to grab a 2-0 win. That would make the aggregate scoreline of 5-3, and City would advance. Probably the popular prediction for City to go through, but do not sleep on Leipzig, guys. And the final match we're looking at, Inter Milan versus Porto. Both teams this season have been in respectable form. Inter Milan could be a little bit better for sure. Some slip-ups here and there, and recently they've been cutting a lot of matches narrowly. Lautaro Martinez is a consistent starter. Dzeko usually is along with him in the attacking role, as Lukaku has not been reliable enough. Porto have definitely been getting finer margins against their opponents recently, but of course it's in a different league. The attacking battle will be interesting though, as because I already mentioned Martinez and Dzeko have been pulling through for Inter. Mehdi Taremi has been getting an insane amount of goals this season. Thiago Costa has also been an extremely clutch keeper. I mean, even when we think it's alright to count Inter out, it's a huge mistake, as we've seen them do the job against Barcelona head-to-head in the group stage, with the likes of Çalhanoğlu being a very dangerous component. I think it's going to be really down to the wire here. Inter win the first leg 1-0 at the San Siro. Porto win the second leg at home 2-1. That means it's 2-2 on aggregate, but I'm going for Porto to win on penalties. Too tough to pick a winner on that one. I feel like most people are going to go for Inter Milan, but watch out for Porto. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are my Champions League round of 16 predictions. I'm sure you all have different ideas than me, as for not all of them, obviously, but many of these fixtures seem very balanced. So anything's possible here. Let me know your thoughts as always in the comments below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. And make sure you go check out Pookie to give out your predictions on their website for a chance to obviously win loads of prizes. Anyways, I will see you all very, very soon. Take care. Boa noite.